Good evening, everybody. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, but not doing that today. Today, I'm doing one of the things I like to do at least once a month, if not more. I host some great conversations called Men and M&M Explorers, and it's produced by the Men and Masculinity team consisting of Lee, Terry, Michelle, and Steve. Couldn't do it without them, and always love these epic conversations. And today we have a special event. Now, some people may know a book called Wild at Heart. If you don't, you should. But right now we have John Eldredge. He's a best-selling author and leader at Wild at Heart, a faith-based, I got it out, organization that works to awake men's and women's heart through God. He's a best-selling author, a counselor, and a teacher. He is also president of Wild at Heart, a ministry devoted to helping people discover the heart of God, recover their own hearts in God's love, and learn to live in God's kingdom. John and his wife, Stasi, live near Colorado Springs, Colorado. So we are very, very happy to have John with us tonight. Not an easy man to get a hold of for a number of good reasons, a number of great reasons. But we're happy to have him. John, welcome, and how are you today?
Yeah, Dr. Vibe, good to see you, pal.
Right back at you, right back at you. What's been going on today?
I'm good. Yeah, been working on some film projects we're doing to help heal guys and gals, and yeah, doing our work.
Good. A little background on yourself. Where did the thought and the passion for healing men come from?
Yeah, partly from my own story, and then partly as a therapist working with men. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and my dad checked out, and it was pretty devastating. You know, he blew it all up, blew the family up, and I was lost. I didn't have a father. And I spent a lot of my 20s and 30s faking it, like trying to act like I knew what it meant to be a man, you know, pushing hard. And we call that guy the poser. I was living out of the poser quite a bit, and I didn't want to live that. And at the same time, you know, in my 30s now, I'm a therapist, and I'm seeing a lot of guys, and I'm hearing the same things, right? I'm hearing there's brokenness, there's passion, there's fatherlessness, there's a longing to be a good father, just all that. So I wrote a book, and first year it was kind of a nothing, and then it just started taking off, and it's been a pretty neat story of being able to work with men over the years.
How does it feel to have a book that is regarded by many as one of the keynotes of manhood? How does that make you feel when it started to get popular, and even today? How does that make you feel?
Well, obviously it's super rewarding. I think deeper, I'm just grateful that we can help guys, and we can help families. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, if we can help guys get to a better place and be more wholehearted, I'm really about being a wholehearted man. Holy cow, we can do a lot of good in the world.
Right.
Like what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, helping men just ask the right questions and head in a good direction.
I want to just jump back to your own personal journey. When did it start to turn? Was there a moment or a few incidences that said, I'm beginning to turn the corner? I've been going down this lane, but now I'm going down that lane. Was there a moment or a few moments?
Oh yeah, full on. I had this anger inside, and we have boys. We had three little boys at the time, and I started blowing up at them, and I'm like, oh man, I do not want to repeat my dad's story, and I don't want to. I'm now hurting the people I love most in the world.
Wow.
And so that's, I went to counseling. I signed up, man. I bought the ticket. I'm like, I don't, and I couldn't have told you at the time. I knew I was pissed inside. And I knew it had to do with men. I didn't like hanging out with men. And I sure didn't trust older men. And I didn't know where any of that came from. And so I swallowed the humility pill, and I went to counseling, and it was life-changing. It was absolutely huge.
Wow. How, and I don't want to delve too much during that time, but I want to say, how is that impacting your marriage?
Right? Full on. Yeah. Yeah, poor Stace. She, because my dad blows the family up, and I made a pretty deep vow that I will never need anyone. And so my
Wow.
poor wife marries a guy, and I was a good guy. I'm not throwing dishes. We're not having full blown fights. I'm not cheating on her, but she doesn't have access to my heart. Like I am, I am full tilt guarded. And the poor gal for 10 years, first 10 years of our marriage, I was a good guy, a good guy, right? But I was pretty locked down inside.
Wow. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Let me ask, well, we're going to just chop it up, but the challenges that you saw men having when you started this journey compared to the challenges you see men having now, any differences? Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, so when you and I started into all this, and Lee, and there was a lot of questions about masculinity
Mhm.
and what does it mean to be a good dad and stuff. But now, like, gender is a meltdown. Like you can't even talk about this stuff without completely getting people fried at you. Like it's a train wreck. I mean, we've gone from a pretty bad situation to like a Chernobyl situation now. It's just meltdown.
Mm. What do you think have been the root causes of this meltdown as you regard it?
Well, and there's two sides to that story too, because I'm not a doomsayer. There's also some really cool stuff going on. Things like your movement. There's a lot of cool stuff going on around the world. The fatherhood movement
Yep.
in Canada and in the US. I know a guy who's trying to get that going in the Ukraine. There's good stuff happening. So I do want to give both sides to the story. But if you just stop the average guy on the street and you begin to kind of delve a little bit into his life, how you doing? How's it going? It's a lot of pretty deep confusion and pretty deep woundedness.
Mhm.
So you asked about like how is it then? How is it now? There are some similarities. I think um, because of the design of the father-son relationship, the boy looks to the dad first to know who he is as a man. And he's got two basic questions. Do you love me? Does my dad love me? And do you think I have what it takes?
Yep.
Right? And the dad's, supposed to shower him with, delight. And I love hanging out with you. And let's wrestle and let's read books. And then also really answer that question. So the main thing is that most men did not get that from their dad.
Mhm.
And, whether he was just a quiet guy, but he was checked out, or if he was gone, or if he was full blown violent, you know, um, same thing. They didn't get what they needed as boys. And so what we have now is a lot of boys walking around in men's bodies, and
Mm.
they've got power and they've got money and they've got, opportunities to really blow things up. Right.
Yeah.
But the common thing is that I would say the search for validation. What's the common denominator? It's the search for validation. We're still looking for an answer to that question.
Yeah. I can so much relate what you're saying about not connecting to my dad, and I've mentioned this story periodically through these broadcasts. I didn't feel I had that connection until my dad had a quadruple bypass, and wheeling him into the operating room that day and then waiting in the waiting room for like 4.5 hours and not knowing if I'd ever see him again. And that turned our relationship around 150%.
Wow. Wow. What do you think it turned him around too?
Yeah, because he was a dad that work. Like he worked 38 years in the same school as a public school teacher. His family was number one, but that began to show a different part of his life, that there's a different sort of love he needed to show to his family other than just being a provider.
Yeah.
He provided financially and all that kind of stuff, but he realized that he had to provide lovingly.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it is. That's the key. That's what the family needs. How many guys would say, my dad provided for us, but I never had a close relationship with him.
Yeah. 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 He regards me as his best friend right now.
Oh, come on.
So that's huge.
That's killer.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Very, very huge.
Wow.
I got some questions that have been sent in from our audience for you that I know you're going to be doing great answers or giving great answers with. So my first question from our audience is, what is great about being a man?
Oh. Well, first off, you get to blow stuff up.
Okay.
I mean, little boys, come on. You get to pee off the deck and climb trees and blow stuff up and light anthills on fire. I mean, it's just all that boyhood stuff, right? You get to build model airplanes. You get to, go to the batting cages. What's great about being a man? Men bring strength to the world. And it's a courage offered on behalf of others. And that's killer. Like that's a phenomenal role. To be able to come through for your kids, to be able to come through for your marriage, to be able to come through for your community. That's huge. Are you kidding me? And the men are uniquely wired. So here's a fascinating thing. Women will survive layoffs or career changes or retirement, but men don't. Like most men die a year after retirement.
Wow.
Right? That's a holy cow.
Yeah, well, not only that, but on average, we don't live as long as the ladies.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's why. Because a man's worst fear is failure. And a woman's worst fear is relational betrayal.
Wow, this is good.
Guys want to be powerful. Guys want to make a difference. Guys want to feel like we're having an impact, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what's awesome about being a man, is that you get to be powerful. You get to make an impact in the world. You get to offer a genuine strength on behalf of your family, on behalf of your community. Yeah, it's killer.
So again, I'm going to contrast again. Is that more or less available now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, that's brutal. That's brutal, because especially right now in the COVID world, right? So men are made to be warriors, but right now we don't know what to fight. Like, what do we fight? Like, we're fighting a germ? We're fighting, like, what is it? Like, no, we just all want you to go home and wear masks. Like, passivity is crippling to men. And then, like, as kings, like, we want to make the world better, but we're not sure how to make the world better right now. Like, how do you do that? And so I think this is a very, very, very hard time to be a man. And the economic uncertainty and the uncertainty of the future, that's really rough on men. And then you add into that kind of the gender confusion of our age, of our hour here. I think it's rougher now to be a man than when we were growing up,
Mhm.
and when our dads were growing up. I just think it's a real mess out there.
Okay. Part of your literature is about awakening a man's heart. What does that mean to you, and what does that look like for our men out there whose heart may not be awakening, or it may be dead right now? Because you just shared with us that it's a tough time to be a man right now. What does when a man's heart is awoken, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Okay, this is cool. It's all about the heart. It's all about the heart. Um, and and it's about the heart coming alive, and it's about healing from the wounds of our childhood and breaking some of the agreements we've been making with those wounds, right? So when a man's heart's alive, for one thing, he recovers his passion. He's got a fire inside, right? He's a force, right? He's making things happen. He's chasing his dreams. He recovers his passion. When a man's heart is alive, he knows who he is. He's also recovered his identity. And he's not looking to the world to tell him who he is, right? He's living out of a center. He's living out of, uh, yeah, fire within. So I would say he's clear on his mission, knows what he's about, knows what he wants to do. Like the number of guys that have been in my counseling office, I could just throw a chair through a window. The number of guys through my career as a counselor who are dying inside because they hate their career.
Mm.
They're like, I don't know why I signed up for this. I thought if I was a dentist, I'd make a lot of money, but now I just hate it. Or I don't know why I signed up for this. I quit school and just thought I could make a living, and now I can't. And right, it's that they're dying because they lost their dreams, they lost their mission. They don't know what they're living for, right?
Mhm. It's good. One of the phrases I use is that there's a lot of men that are screaming and nothing's coming out. Do you meet a number of men like that?
Tell me what you mean. Say some more about that. That sounds pretty powerful.
It piggybacks on what you were saying, that there's a lot of men out there that want to express, they want to do something, and for whatever reason they don't have the confidence. They don't know what the next step is. They, like, you always hear the term a safe space, but I feel that men need a safe space, a brave space, and permission to express themselves. And there isn't a lot of those variables that come together these days for many men. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So let me connect that with a couple of ideas. Um, for one thing, guys need to hang out with guys. You do. You just need a couple brothers.
So, John, I'm gonna just hold on. I'm just interrupt you for a second, because this is interesting. Because a few minutes ago we were talking about being young guys, and when we are going to public school, and it's still pretty predominant today, 80% of the teachers in public school are women.
Yep. Yep.
So in those early years of boyhood, before you come manhood, the majority of your time is not spent with other boys. I'm just
Right.
going to put it out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and they're trying to make you behave like the little girls in the classroom because the little girls are well behaved for the most part, right? It's a different brain. It's a different mindset. Boys learn through large motor skills. They learn through doing mostly. So yeah, he wants to get out and he wants to climb the balcony. He wants to jump off the roof. He wants to race his bike across the dirt. And we keep saying, sit down, sit down, sit down, pay attention, pay attention. So that's a rough scenario. You're right, Dr. Vibe. You're right. That's huge.
Yeah.
Men need men to hang out with, to kind of to tell their story to. to begin to recover heart. And men also, another idea, just kind of riffing on this, that thing about screaming and nothing's coming out.
Yes.
So when we are young, messages get in. You got nothing to say. You're an idiot. If you speak up, people are going to laugh. You know, it's the whole thing. You're weak. You're a mama's boy. You know, it's just every
Yep.
man's got a story.
Yep.
Every man has a story. And you won't understand a man until you know his story. You won't. You got to hear his story. And in his story, that is what we call, when we're working with guys, we call it the power of agreements. Is we make these agreements. Don't take a full swing when you're at the plate because people are going to laugh at you. You're going to strike out, right? Don't speak up because you got nothing to say. Like, we make these very specific agreements. You know, I'm on my own. I'm on my own. And those agreements later in life, as we become adults, those are what silence us. Those are what shut us down, right? And so you've got to begin to identify the agreements that you've been making and break them. And because to get out from under those agreements of, you know, you're an idiot, you suck at life, whatever it is, right? That get out from under that agreement, you'll find your voice.
Right. That's good stuff. I love the whole that agreements concept. That's money right there. What you just spoke. That is true. I be a good question for men. What agreements are you holding on to? Are you committed to?
Yeah, that's good.
What commitments are you committed to? That is fantastic. Question for you. Next conversation piece. What is your definition of a quote honorable man unquote?
Well, we're going to have to delve into the realm of a word that's got a lot of weird connotations to it. But I want to talk about the power of love. Because love takes an enormous amount of courage. And to offer, what is an honorable man? He is a man who is not primarily self-protecting, but he is here for others. I'm here for you. So, like, to his kids, to be able to say, I'm here for you. This isn't about me, right? Because a lot of the performance issues and grades and stuff with our kids, it's not about that stuff. It's about their heart. It's about their heart. And to say, I'm here for you, right? That takes a lot of courage. To not walk away from a tough marriage takes a lot of courage. To accept a promotion at work takes a lot of courage. To go back to school takes a lot of courage. To join the military and serve your country takes a lot of courage. There's a lot of ways to express that. And so an honorable man is a man who is choosing to love even though it's costing him.
A good definition. I like that. That's strong. That's strong. Here's another conversation piece here. We were talking about it before we went live. How are you and how are the fathers that you associate with handling the pandemic? You did mention a little bit lightly before, but how are you handling and how are the fathers that you are helping or communicate with? How is this affecting them as fathers and also how's it affecting them as men?
It's brutal. Can we all just admit that? This thing is awful, especially when the kids all get kicked home from school and suddenly you find yourself like a lot of guys. First off, domestic abuse went through the roof during the first quarantine, first round in the spring, all over the world. It's absolutely tragic. And part of that was because men found themselves suddenly stuck at home all day, either without work or trying to get their work done online now. and it's crazy making, right? And then you got the kids there because they got sent home from school, but they need to be schooled, but they're doing it online, but not, so can we just all admit this is really rough?
Yes.
It's rough, man. And just to have permission to say that this is rough. I don't think, and this, I may get in trouble saying this, I don't think men were primarily meant to stay home all day. I think that's rough on a guy, right? It's just not how we're wired. We're wired to go out. We're wired to make a difference. We're wired to, get it in there and get it done, right? And so that, and then you add to that like the economic uncertainty. And do I have work? Am I going to have work? Where's this headed? It's rough. Okay. So yes, let's talk about survival skills, because we've been talking about this a lot on the Wild at Heart podcast. Is how do we survive? How do you navigate a time like this? And so I'm going to give some really basic tools.
Please do.
Yeah. First off, guys, limit your news intake. There is no study that shows an increase of joy and happiness with the increase of your news intake. Not one single study. Okay? It fries you. It right? It's aggravating. It's crazy making. You get mad about this and mad about that. What about those guys? Okay. Whoa. Like, survival skill. Limit your news intake. 5 minutes a day. Like, get in, get the basics. Has the government changed the restrictions, or what's happening with the weather, or whatever? Get the basics, and then get out. And now I want you to literally get out. Like, the amount of research that shows the health benefits of getting outside, even to simply take a walk. It's like your body loves it. Your brain loves it. Your brain starts releasing all the joy, chemicals and stuff, lowers the cortisol in your body. So like, men need to get outside, and therefore they need to get like off the screens, and they need to get outside at least once a day. And I understand everybody's got a different, they've got a different like restrictions, and I get that. So even if you get on the balcony, get on the roof of the building, right? So you can open the windows. Okay. Survival skills. All right. This may surprise guys. Beautiful music. You need to play beautiful music in your house, your apartment, your condo. You need to play beautiful music. I'll tell you why. Because the brain research on this is just fascinating. So screen time fragments your brain. It's crazy making. There's a fabulous book on this called The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, what the internet's doing to our brains. But what it's basically doing is it's frying your attention, and it's fragmenting your brain. Well, here's the cool thing. Music reintegrates your brain. And there's some amazing work being done with men and women with like severe brain trauma, or deep Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, like really severe. And the one thing people respond to is music. And it's really cool because music is actually not located one place in your brain. It draws on a bunch of different faculties of your brain. So these kinds of things, like get off the screens, get outside every day, listen to beautiful music, will be so like reorienting for you, and so healing and restorative. And what we have to do right now is we got to practice some self-care. You don't spend all day eating chips and watching Netflix.
Good stuff. Got a question here from Anthony on Facebook. He said, I would like to ask, how do you get men to start opening up and start talking about how they feel and be vulnerable?
Will, you said it earlier. You talked about safe space. It needs to be a safe space, right? Like if couple of guys hanging out together, if it's a safe space, if it doesn't feel safe, I'm not opening up. If it doesn't feel safe, I'm not sharing, right? And then I think the other thing is lead by example. Like you tell your story, just like I was doing here on the show. Say, yeah, I grew up in an alcoholic home. Here's what that was like. I was really angry inside, all that. And so make a safe space, lead by example. And then when a guy does open up, oh, for God's sakes, please don't correct him. Like, don't make the first thing you do is to like tell him how to get it right. He's not gonna open up next time.
It's interesting because when a man opens up to me for the first time, I say, wow.
Right?
Wow. Because that's a significant moment in his journey. And it's a form of validation, form of congratulations. Thanks for taking that step.
Way to go. That's it. That's a great way.
Absolutely. Really, really good. We have some people watching live. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in because we only have this man for a few more minutes and you don't know how tough it was to get him for an hour. So I don't want to waste him. And hopefully down the road we can have him back because he is on fire today. He is on fire. Another question I have for you. How have your needs as a man changed since your 20s, your 30s, your 40s to today? How have your needs changed as a man?
Huge, guys, huge. And we have to, oh boy. So this opens up a whole nother conversation, but we have lost the passages of the masculine journey. And you move through these stages of kind of what I call the cowboy stage, where it's adventure and it's hard work and you're kind of learning who you are. And then there's the warrior stage where you are in a mission and you are out there, fighting the fight for your career, for a relationship, or for your dreams. And then there's the lover, right? And then it's relationship and it's commitment. And, there are these stages that we go through. And just to admit that and say, look, you don't have to have your act together when you're 22, right? Like, pressure's off, man. I would spend most of your 20s trying things out. Like, try some stuff out. And like, you don't have to make your career choice when you're 18. You really don't. Most of the people I know in their 50s are not working in the field that they studied in college. It's okay, gang. Like, that's just part of the journey. And then as you get into the 30s, oh man, that's young family, young marriage, young kids. And that, like what happens in the 30s is you kind of lose your life. When you're in your 20s, you can go on a mountain bike ride, you can go skiing. Like, some guys invite you to go on a trip. You have no commitments. Right. You get into the 30s and it feels like you lost your life. And so you're going to need to, some of the things we were talking about, like soul care, self-care, you have to really practice that. And like, if there's some ladies listening, like, let your man go fishing. Let him go to the gym. Bless that, because he comes back with a full tank. And in the 30s, man, it feels like you got no time. Right? So there's these phases that you go on. You get into the 40s and things get a little dangerous, because here's the deal. You get a little money, you get a little free time. And if you're not careful, you're going to become a narcissist, right? Because you spent your 30s, raising a family. And in the 40s now you're like, hey, I'm going to get a little bit back for me. And so like, the needs of men do change and progress over time. And I'm gonna put Lee on the spot here. Lee, how old are you?
Come on, Lee.
Friday, I just turned 60.
Okay, all right. I turned 60 this year too. You and I are entering the phase of life that I call the sage. And what the sage, he's not primarily focused on building kingdoms anymore. What the sage offers is to mentor younger men. And so the needs of a sage are very different. Like, you don't always have to have the microphone. You don't always have to be driving the bus, right? But you do need a voice. right? You do need to have a place at the table where young men are doing what we're doing. They're asking you their questions. And so can you see that? Like
Yep.
the stage of the 20s is very different than the stage of the 60s. And so like, to do a little bit of reading on that and give some thought to that, like it's really helpful.
That's a wonderful answer. I would add to that, I think, and I would want to get your feedback on this. How many men have that circle through all those different years? Because I don't think many men have that circle of men that they can grow with through each one of those decades. And not having that circle, is that some of the challenge or some of the outcomes of the challenges we're facing with men today?
Oh, big time. Big time. Yeah, you got to fight for it. I mean, friendships with men. Wow, somebody came out with a really famous book. It was The Friendless American Male. I forget that. It was back in the 70s. But he was describing the phenomena of most guys don't have friends. Not like real friends. They have like colleagues, or they have guys that like at the gym, but they don't have real friends. And it's male friendship is something you are going to have to fight for. And for years, my best friend lived 4 states away. It was just life, we moved and so what we made a commitment of, like, every Thursday we are on the phone together, or now you can like FaceTime
Sure.
and Zoom and do what we're doing here, Facebook Live, and you can connect, and even if it's states away, you got to fight for those friendships.
I love that. I love that men fight for your friendships. What feeling do you get when you're with your close men friends? What feeling does that provide to you?
For me,
Yes.
oh man, with all love and grace and understanding, women don't get men. We're
It's
different.
true. It's true. And we don't get them though, but it's a certain reciprocal, right?
Why does out of every 2 marriages end in divorce? There's just a fundamental lack of understanding. And in a good marriage, you really strive to overcome that, right? And really understand what it's like to be the other. But when you're just with guys, right? Oh, just a relief of just being able to shoot straight. And guys get it, right? Like, so it's the camaraderie. It really combats the loneliness. And then we were talking about telling your story. Like, you don't know what you know until you start talking. You don't. Like, you got, as the conversation gets going, stuff's going to come out of your mouth and you're like, whoa, I didn't know I knew that. Or I didn't know I felt that. Or I didn't know I was agreeing with that, back to the agreements thing. So, oh my gosh, the conversation, all that is so healthy.
Nice. Nice. Again, folks, if you have any questions or comments, put them in, bring them up. Lee's monitoring the chat line, so make it happen. Comment here from Tom on Facebook. Yeah, me. He's been 25 years in men's circles. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's killer.
That is really, really good. Another conversation piece for you. How has being a father changed you as a man?
Will, wow, what a huge question. First off, I had no idea how selfish I was. And the first epiphany is marriage, right? You get married and you're like, I had no idea I was so selfish. Because marriage immediately, like, you're surrendering all kinds of time and focus and attention and desires and opinions. And, so I mean, Stacey and I are out there right now figuring out what paint color we're going to repaint the living room, right? And you're making concessions all the time, right? So, and then the kids come along and it's like, holy moly. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And I love being a dad now. Like, I have 3 sons in their late 20s, early 30s. They're all married. and now they're starting their families.
Congratulations.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And they're great young men. I think being a father showed me that I have a lot to offer. And guys, I don't mean wisdom and I don't mean skill. I just mean when you hang out with your kids, you play together and you just goof off and, go out for burgers and stuff, like, it's phenomenal. They love that. And you realize, wow, I really do have something to offer. My presence matters.
Nice.
Right? My presence matters.
Nice. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 sisters. So I was raised in a very feminine home.
Oh,
And especially when my dad blew up.
yeah.
And my mom literally put on the pants in the family and got a career. And, but I never saw her because she was working all the time. But I do. I have siblings.
Okay.
Where were you going with that question?
So here's my question. Thanks for sharing that. How is it being a brother?
Well, I only discovered that when I began to have really good male friendships.
Oh, okay.
Because I love my sisters, but we don't exactly share the same
Yep.
desires.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right. Like they don't want to go camping, and I'm a bow hunter, and they don't want to go bow hunting. Like I love motorcycles. They don't want to ride bikes. So brotherhood for me really opened up when I began to have good male friendships.
Nice.
And it was an epiphany for me. I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know that was available because I didn't have it growing up.
Nice. 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 Tom Mack, you have your mic unmuted, so you have something to share. Go ahead, Tom.
I really didn't. I just hitting buttons. Happy birthday, Lee. I did send you happy birthday the other day, but I'm just trying to figure out why John and Lee are just, approaching their 60s. I'm in 63, and why do they look so much older than me? So.
That's a shot. Come on, Tom. Oh my gosh.
No, John,
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John, because I consider myself blessed through this journey, but it wasn't easy when you were talking about especially when you're talking about your 30s. I mean, I got sober a week after I turned 30. I just celebrated 33 years, and
congratulations.
I went through a divorce. I ended up doing the men's weekend in '94. So whatever year that, how many of the years that was. And I ended up getting custody of my boys. And it was, and it took a while, but I met somebody, and Cindy, and we dated for exactly 1 year, and then I proposed, and then we got married. We had 2 more. So we have 5 kids. I just want to hear John's opinion on this. So here I am, I'd say late 30s going into 40. I'm happy. I had my last baby he's a senior in high school now. So I had him 17 years ago, whatever 63 minus 17 is. So I was 40 something when I had Ben, and I didn't have time. I had a purpose in front of me. It was my family. So I was very zoned in, even on my 40s and 50s, and now in my 60s. So, I mean, he's looking at colleges right now, and colleges are actually looking at him. But what I noticed was in my 40s, mid 40s, all my friends, I started to notice that their kids were growing up and either going off to college or leaving the home finally. And I noticed that the men, you know, especially when in the 90s, when the financial crisis hit, you know, before it hit, if you could sign your name, they'd give you $500,000, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed, you know, exactly what you're talking about. I wanted to hear your thoughts. Like, I noticed that these men were going through something like a midlife crisis or something.
Okay.
All
And
right.
they were buying boats and toys and stuff. And then the chicken came home to roost, and it was like, oh, I got to pay that money back.
Okay. So we'll let John address that. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, so I was
That's-
just wondering where, you know, that all fit in, you know, like,
Yeah. Let's take it all the way back to boyhood. If he doesn't know that he's loved, and if he doesn't know that he has what it takes, if he didn't get that, then in the 40s, he starts looking for love. He starts looking for that, you know, and it can be the second wife, the third wife, it can be prostitution, right? And then it's the toys, right? Because he never got to play. Right? He starts buying he's trying to fill a hole in his heart. It's what's going on there. And those things don't work. They don't work. Because he's not aware of what he's actually looking for, that search for love and validation that fuels every man's life all the days of his life. And if we're not clear on that, we'll take that to some pretty destructive places.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. And that midlife crisis, boys want their toys. And it's a thought process I have that there are at least two times when a man is not stable. One of them is when he finishes school, he's not a boy anymore, but he's not a man yet.
Right.
And then, as Tom was saying, in the 40s, you know, you've had a little bit of a career, and you haven't made it to where you want to be. You're not a young man anymore, but you're not an old man. And it's that time of indecision. And if you don't have those men's circles and men's groups, it can be perilous.
It's a great film on that, guys. You should go watch again the old Billy Crystal movie, City Slickers.
Yes. Yes.
It's
yes.
It's a killer insight into the masculine journey, particularly in the 40s, in the midlife crisis.
Yes. So true. So true. Great movie and great actor.
Yeah.
Very good actor. As we're starting to wind down here, because I know your time is tight, what are some of you've given some thought process and shared some before in regards to men right now. If a man came to you and said, John, I'm hurting, I don't know where to go, I need direction, I need help. And if you want, we can role play it right now if you wish, in like real time. Just to share this for men and those who love them, something that they can act upon or have some maybe clarity on, very much on clarity. With the men that you have helped over the years,
Yeah.
where are some areas of or suggestions of clarity that you can provide them?
Yeah. Let's what I'm gonna suggest is talk to somebody. Go see a therapist. It's worth every dime you'll ever pay for it. And here's the thing: right now, just about everybody's doing it by Zoom. So you don't even need to go to an office. You can just. But before that, so what I would say is get out a pad of paper and begin to write. What do you mean by I'm hurting right now? Like, what's the dilemma? Where's the pain? What are you angry about? What are you fearful of? Like, just begin to put some words to it. Because right now in the pandemic quarantine world, there's so much stuff swirling that we're having these feelings, but we actually haven't named it. We haven't put words to it. We don't get specific. Like Dr. Bob, you were saying, get some clarity, right? Well, it begins by putting words to it. Name it. This is what I mean. I am so ticked at whatever, or I am afraid that what, like begin to put some words to it. And then guys, if you know, if seeing a counselor for a couple months isn't an option for you, read a good book on it. Read a good book. You know.
Do you have any suggestions?
Oh gosh,
Your book's good.
well, Wild at Heart. I mean, Wild at Heart's killer. Yeah, oh my gosh. So a book that I absolutely adore for men is Robert Bly's book, Iron John. That's a killer book. That started the men's movement in the 70s. Iron John by Robert Bly. That's an absolutely killer book. Sam Keene's book, Fire in the Belly. Gordon Dalby has a really good book called Healing the Masculine Soul.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Okay.
Do some reading, right?
I also would like you to give some words of thought to younger men, because they need direction too.
Big time.
What would you, I guess a two-part conversation piece, message to the elders about helping the younger men, and also a message to the younger men.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're a guy, man, if you are maturing as a man, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but particularly 50, 60, 70, like, and you don't have a young man or two in your life, what are you doing? Why not? Like, you got to take a guy out for coffee, ask him how he's doing. Because what a young man needs more than anything else in his life, more than anything in his life, is an older man. And we all wish we had it when we were young, right? Wish I had somebody to ask questions of, wish I had somebody to process this with. And your pals can't provide that for you. They provide everything else we were talking about, the tribe, the conversation, the safe space, that's all good. But they can't provide the fathering, right? That you need, the mentoring, the sage in your life. And again, like, so for years, you know, you can get it in other places. Like, if you can get it live, get it live. But you can get it from books, you can get it from podcasts. You know, you don't have to figure life out on your own when you're, you know, 18, 25, 32. You don't have to figure it out on your own. But the main obstacle that those guys have to overcome is they want to do it on their own.
Got it. You got it. What is your vision? What would you like to see your vision for men 5, 10 years from now?
Well, I think it's happening, guys. Here's the other good side of the story. I mean, look at us. What are we doing? We're sitting around talking about the masculine journey. There is a ton of this going on in the world right now. Fathering movements, friendships of men, iron sharpens iron, like lots of great stuff happening out there. Men's things popping up all over the place. And I would say, man, join something. Join something. Get in a father-son outing thing where they're going out, you know, to do adventures. Get in, you know, I mean, base level. Get in the Rotary Club. Get in something, you know, because Dr. Vibe, the two things are happening, and they're going like this. The culture is blowing up, and it's melting down, particularly with regard to masculinity. But there's this grassroots thing going on also, where men are saying, you know what, I want to be wholehearted. I want the real deal. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better husband. And they're chasing it. And it's awesome. There is good news on the horizon.
Wonderful. I will also go ahead, Lee.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask John a question.
Please do.
You know, I was struck earlier in the conversation when you were talking about the agreements we make with ourselves. And, you know, I guess for me, those agreements were invisible. I didn't know I was making them until, you know, I joined men's circles and were able to hear myself talk So my question to you is like, what's the access point into understanding what those agreements are underneath the surface? Like to me,
Yeah.
they occurred to me as like,
Yeah.
oh, those are solid things of the way I am. It wasn't like I made an agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're not in the men's circle right now and you aren't able to hear yourself, then I would say a couple things. It's real simple. Take out a pad of paper and write your answer to a couple questions. What do you think of yourself as a man? And not as a human being, not as a person, but as a man. What do you think of yourself? How would you answer that? And be honest, like go ahead and put it out there. You'll find the agreements in that. Second question, what do you think other people would say about you as a man? Right? Write that out. What are you afraid they would say? Okay. And then the third access point is what comes out of your mouth when you screw something up? Because you're actually telling yourself all that self-talk that you do, right? You're telling yourself your agreements all the time. I'm such a pussy. I'm such an idiot. What an F up. Like I'll never make it. I hate myself. Like, oh, it'll be, it's right there. It's right there. I'm on my own. Nobody's here for me. Why does life have to be so hard? That's a big one. That's a real common agreement. So those are access points.
Nice.
Thanks. That's valuable.
That is great. Uh, well, our time is almost up. And John, first of all, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Men in Masculinity team for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to share with us. Any final words you'd like to share with us before we have to let you go, unfortunately?
I want to come back to the moment that we're living in. And I want to say, guys, you actually need to recognize this is a very rough time to be a human being. To live in constant uncertainty, to have your normal taken away. That's what they do in prisoner of war camps. And so you need to find a routine that begins to care for your humanity. And it's the stuff we were talking about: beauty, nature, music, not getting off the screen time, connecting with others, reading, exercise. Like, if you don't practice that, it's going to be pretty rough to flourish in the days ahead.
John, if anyone wants to find out any more information about you and the wonderful work you have been, are, and will be doing, where can they find out more?
Yeah, so it's Wild at Heart, Wild at Heart podcast, wildatheart.org. As Dr. Vibe said at the beginning of the conversation, it's a faith-based thing. So, we're coming at it with a spiritual perspective, but I think you'll find a lot of stuff there that's super healing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Also like to thank again the Men of Masculinity team, Lee, Michelle, Terry, Steve, and it was Michelle that did the initial reach out to Jamie on John's team to make this happen. So absolutely fabulous. I'd like to thank everyone who caught the conversation live or on replay. I'm looking at faces now saying, yeah, they got it. They enjoyed it. They appreciate it. And continued success, John. And if you want to find out more information about Men and Masculinity, go to the website, www.menandmasculinity.com. We'll be coming to you with other conversations, especially before the end of the year. And the most important thing I will say to men out there right now, remember to give yourself grace. Good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.